All right, thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome to the SpotLink Training Center. This is our continuing sessions of TekTalk on various technology subjects. We do these about once a quarter as well as monthly newsletters. Today's topic is data protection and recovery, or to put it more succinctly, how to survive a business disaster without going out of business. So let's take a look at, all right, so here, first slide, the three pillars of infrastructure management. Security is definitely one of those. It's a big topic right now. In fact, in the last 6 months, we've had 2 tech talks on that, as well as a number of newsletters. But today, we're not going to be focusing on that at all. Another one, which most people don't think about now, is power. As servers have moved to the cloud, the advent of really needing to worry about power inside your office has been decreasing, yet it's still fundamental to keeping an IT infrastructure going. And I guarantee you in the data centers where your cloud services physically reside, they spend a lot of time on power management. Today's topic is protection. So let's look at some of the importance of data protection. So according to FEMA, 40% of the businesses never reopened after a disaster. And of those that did reopen, only about 29% were still operating after 2 years. So if you do the math on that, that only leaves about 17%, or 1 in 6, of the businesses that were actually in business after 2 years that had a data disaster. I have a pretty good feeling that of those 1 in 6, those are probably the ones that had a good data protection plan in place. And to just put another spin on it, the majority of businesses that lost their information technology for 9 days or more after disaster filed bankruptcy within a year. So you can see it's really important to have a good data protection plan. And you need to size it for your business. So there's really 3 levels to data protection. The first is data backup. All of you are probably familiar with that. Comes in all shapes and sizes. The next level is disaster recovery. And the last level, and one that's getting more and more press now, is business continuity. And we'll talk about all of these. So data backup. The objective of data backup is to replicate your data either at the file or system level so that it can be recovered if the primary storage location is overwritten or lost. Disaster recovery. The objective of disaster recovery is to have your business systems back up and running within stated business requirements when the primary systems become unavailable. And business continuity. The objective of business continuity is to, in near real time, resume business operations during a disaster and gracefully fail back when the disaster has passed. That last point is something that's often missed when looking at data protection plan, yet it's very important when you're actually trying to get back up and running in a post-disaster situation. So, being one of the 3 pillars of technology infrastructure, there are a lot of different approaches to this. A lot of different companies out there providing services for various types of businesses and individuals. So let's quickly go over some of those. So first one is strictly a file-based backup. These are very simplistic legacy systems such as Xcopy, rsync. Those are more manual, program-ish type operations, as well as some of those that you can go buy in a store with external drives such as Western Digital, MyPassport, or Seagate Backup Plus, etc. These are generally for file recovery only, not restoring entire systems. So if your hard disk dies, you have to reinstall Windows and get it back up before you can reinstall the data. And it's generally a local only. There's no cloud replication of this data. Current file-based cloud backups. So these are such as Carbonite, Mosey, which actually was recently purchased by Carbonite, CraftPlan, etc. You see these advertised on the internet, often geared at individuals in the home. They're very economical. They are finally only. Again, you can't restore your entire system. File backup type is limited by default. You want to be really careful about this. The file type, the extension to the file is of a type that's being backed up. Otherwise, if you lose your system and you haven't done that, you could actually lose a lot of your important data. Again, there's no local copy, so if you do have a disaster, depending upon your internet speed, it can take you a long time to recover those, to download and recover those systems. And the business packages on these can get very expensive fast. So if you're a business and you have a fair amount of data, and you're looking at using one of these, make sure to look at how the pricing scales as your data size scales. All right, so legacy file and system-based backup systems. These are largely going away now, but there are products such as Yosemite Backup, NovaSoft. They're cheap, often included free with various products. They're primarily file restoration. There's no Exchange or SQL granular restores. Theoretically, you could use these for a full system restore. I've never seen one of those be successful, actually, and they're local only. Legacy system-based backup. So this is like Backup Exec from Veritas, Net Backup from Veritas, ArcServe, Computer Associates. These were primarily targeted at tape drives originally. They added on support for external drives and network attached storage, and later they added on cloud. Often that's done in kind of a kludgy way. Anyway, these are file-based as opposed to image, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. And this does allow you to restore entire systems. Generally, you need an equivalent piece of hardware, although they have been trying to change that so the hardware is a little more abstract. All right, legacy image-based backup system. This is like Acronis. They're primarily targeted at external hard drives or a network attached storage. They do image-based, so that means sector by sector. So it looks at your hard drive, and when it sees a sector change, it backs up that. Otherwise, it skips it when you do incremental or differential backups. There's limited disaster recovery with these systems. You can restore full systems as long as the hardware is equivalent. Although, again, they have done some work on trying to make these more hardware independent. All right, the current image-based backup. Again, these are local focused. Products such as Beam is one of these. Products primarily targeted at external hard drives, but they're actually getting fairly good at syncing to cloud-based too. They're image-based, so sector by sector backup. These started out as primarily virtual machine focused, but they've added in bare metal servers too. Again, the VM focus allows for faster and flexible disaster recovery, but they have limited business continuity features. Okay, data backup types, 7. Current image-based backup systems. These are business continuity focused. So these are companies like Datto or Barracuda Backup. They can support either a hypervisor, such as a virtual machine, or bare metal servers. They're both local and cloud-based backup systems. So generally, there's a appliance, a hardware device or something that does your local backups, and then those are replicated up to the cloud for offsite business continuity capability. As such, they provide either local or cloud virtualization for more near instant disaster recovery of failed servers. So what that means is that if you have a physical server and it dies, This appliance can fire up your servers almost immediately so that you're back in business within minutes. It may be a little slower, but it'll get you through until you get your primary server restored. Likewise, if you have a site-level disaster, a fire or theft, you can spin up your servers in the cloud and attach to them up there, so you can continue conducting business until you get your local infrastructure restored. These also provide graceful failback. So you're running your instance either on the appliance or in the cloud. You get your servers back, and you can essentially download those server images back onto your newly covered hardware, and you're back up and running. These also allow for, because of how these work, they also allow for a number of additional for free features out of it, such as physical to physical migration, physical to virtual migration, virtual to physical migration, and virtual to virtual. So it's kind of that matrix of those 2 by 2. Okay, current system-based cloud backup systems. A good example of this is Microsoft Azure Backup. It is both local and cloud-based. Its functionality is like most Microsoft products. It does a pretty good job for most of what it does. One of the neat features of this one is it really can be a migration path to moving your servers to the cloud. You get the backup going from your local servers, you get the offsite cloud synchronization, and then you have the ability to kind of flip things around so that your servers that are in the cloud get fired up, they're operating, and you can power down your local systems, and suddenly your infrastructure is in the cloud. It's a little overly simplified, but in general, the approach on it. Okay, the BDR, Backup Disaster Recovery System. These are companies like Unitrends, which I think we just bought by Kaseya, Chartech, Datto. These are generally offered by IT companies as a single solution. They have local backups, so it's both generally local and in cloud, and they have different features and capabilities. Virtualization, like we talked about, either local and or in cloud, and business continuity. Infrastructure as a service solution. So infrastructure as a service, that's when you put your servers up in the cloud. So these are for like Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google, those are the cloud providers. In an Azure base, you can use single zone redundancy almost for free if you design it right. You can do geographic redundancy so that if you have your AWS servers, say in the San Jose data center, you can replicate them to the Washington data center, so that if one of their sites has a disaster, your servers can fail over to the other site. It's about twice the price. It's a large effort to set it up, but if you're a very large organization, you need that sort of fail-safe, an option for you. Also, having the geographic redundancy also prevents against local outages or provider reboots. One thing a lot of people don't realize is that when you have your infrastructure in the cloud, they will sometimes decide they are going to reboot those systems, and it's their equipment, they can do it. AWS is pretty good about letting you know, Microsoft not so much, but it's not a big now, so you just have to be ready to work with it. We can also use scheduled backup automation through service providers such as CloudRange or Schedly to really have an interface for doing automated backup of your systems. Or if you have somebody who knows the tools well, you can just script the programming to make the backup. Large-scale solutions, replicated data centers. If you're very large, a Walmart or something, you actually have your own data centers. They're replicated to other locations. Won't go too deep into these because these are very, very large institutions. And the last one I'm going to talk about is just do-it-yourself solutions. This is like Amazon's S3 Glacier. Just to recap, Amazon S3 is Amazon's storage solution, very expensive storage. Then they have Amazon Glacier too. That is very, very inexpensive, dirt cheap storage, but it can be slow to recover. It can take up to hours to get access to your data. Just as a little aside, we kind of throw back to the past. The Amazon Glacier system is actually a data center with a large-scale tape backup system. That's why it can actually take a while to get your data back. But also the cost per, even in today's day, the cost per gigabyte per tape still can be lower than magnetic or other types. So that's what Amazon's used to be able to roll out a low-cost solution. Of course, you have Microsoft Azure storage and solutions like Cloudberry, which kind of attaches a lightweight front-end backup system to an Amazon S3. So it kind of rolls your own. All right, so in talking about all these data backup systems, we really come up with a matrix of local only, cloud only, or both, and either file, system, image, or redundant type levels. So now let's look at the 4 levels of disasters. The first level is a device. You have a server that either fails or either by accident or somebody steals it. It's an individual device that goes away. The next level is a site level disaster. So often that's due to like a fire or a theft where essentially all your equipment at that location is no longer available. And then you have a regional disaster. That's often an earthquake, flood, hurricane, terrorism, etc. So essentially all the infrastructure for the local area is out. And kind of a new one is provider level. So this is a disruption or service due to operations or other reasons of an outside cloud provider. So let's look at some of the business requirements on data protection. If you do any research on this, you'll hear these 2 terms. Recovery point objective. That's how old can your data be to continue operations. So in some instances, if you just have files that you touch infrequently, your data could be a week, even a month old, and you can still continue operating just fine. In other cases, if you're highly transaction-based, lots going on, there can be cases where data that's 2 hours old is essentially useless to you. So you want to size that to your business. And the other requirement is recovery time objective. That's how soon do you need to have your systems back up and running without unacceptable business consequences. So how fast do you need them up and running again and continue running the business? All right, so now let's look at calculating the cost of a disaster. 3 parts to it. So the first one is the direct revenue loss. This is the revenue that is irrevocably lost between when the disaster occurs and when your disaster recovery is in effect allowed you to continue operations. Examples of this are non-deferrable electronic orders, retail sales if your doors are closed, people aren't going to come in and buy, phone-based sales, or time-based revenue, such as consulting. Once that hour is gone, you can't bill again. All right, internal costs. These are the costs that continue to be incurred during disaster without benefit to the organization. So idle employees, facility expenses, services that you have on a recurring basis, those costs continue even if you're not generating any revenue. And then the last one is the post-disaster revenue losses. This is a little harder to calculate because it's a little more abstract, but I would argue that these are often larger than the other two. So the revenue here is the revenue that the organization loses after the disaster due to the effects of the disaster. So loss of professional reputation, diminished perceived reliability, and kind of in line with that, loss of confidence and ability to deliver. Okay, so now looking at the current wisdom on backups. The 3-2-1 backup rule: have at least 3 copies of your data, including the original data. Store the copies on 2 different media, so don't save 2 copies of the backup on the same hard drive. Make sure they're different hard drives or even different physical units. And keep one of the backup copies off-site. You can do that by physically taking one of the backup devices off-site, or have cloud backups done. So when you're looking at what backup system is best for your business, here are some questions to ask yourself. Is file backups sufficient? It may be that you don't need to recover all systems. If all your systems could die, you just need access to all the files that you have. Do you have complete servers you need to restore? If you're using things like authentication mechanisms such as Microsoft Active Directory or SQL servers or items like that, you actually need to recover the whole system. So you need to restore it like it was with all the files and permissions and everything as it was. You can't just restore the data. How much data do you have backup? How big is it? That will affect how much your backup solution is going to cost, as well as recovery time. If it's on the cloud, how long to restore? Is that fast enough? So if you've got a terabyte of data and you have a 5 megabit download, it's going to take you a long time to get that data back. Is that fast enough for you? How old can your data be to continue operations? That's going to impact how often you have to do backup. How fast do you need to be back in business, your RTO? How do you fail back to your original equipment? So if after the disaster, you have your disaster recovery mechanism, how do you get back to your original servers once you've replaced them? And when was the last time you tested your system to be sure that it's actually operating? Have you tested file restores, tested SQL database or Exchange server mailbox restores, tested system restores? I would strongly suggest if you haven't done that, you really don't know you have an operating backup solution. I've seen many cases where we go into the site, somebody thinks they have a running backup. Luckily, if we're brought in before they have a disaster and find their backups haven't been running, we can get them up and running. Unfortunately, we have been brought into cases where we're asked to restore something, we look at their backup and find it actually hasn't been running for a year and a half, and they're left with trying to pick up the pieces with a year and a half old data. So, this is a key question. Is your current backup system just a feel-good system? Did you set it up 2 years ago? You saw it was running one day and you just assume it still is. I tell you, backup systems, no matter how much automation you try to put into them, they require ongoing care. They require observation, monitoring, and positive notification when backups are good. Okay, so let's look at some scenarios of various businesses and what's probably the best backup solution for them. So let's look at a small insurance office with 3 employees. Most of the customer files on corporate cloud servers. There's limited non-critical office files on the office file share. So again, most of their main data is up on in a cloud server hosted by their insurance company, and then they have local limited on-site services files. Local files could be lost for a week without disrupting business. Internet connections, 20 megs down, 5 megabits up, and about 40 gigabytes of data. And there's no real security. So from this, we can discern what the business requirements are. An RTO of 1 week, an RTO of 1 week, again, that's recovery point objective and recovery time objective. And if we had to download all these files, it would take about 4.5 hours. So going back to our matrix on which one of these would suffice in the device level disaster, pretty much all of them. Pretty simple environment. However, for a site or regional disaster, if you're using only local backups, you're going to lose everything locally. So none of those would work. And a provider level backup, so if their insurance company servers go down, well, that's where all their main files are, and they don't have a recovery method on this, so none of these options would work in this case. All right, so the appropriate solution to this is probably like a Microsoft OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox. Everything's replicated up to the cloud. You have version control, very, very inexpensive, and it should just work for you. All right, so let's look at it. Scenario number 2, a import-export office with 10 employees. Most customer files on local single server. Files on the office file server are critical to the business operations. Files can't be more than 1 day old. Files could be unavailable for 3 days without unacceptable disruption. And the internet connection is 30 down and up. 700 gigs of files, and the security is handled by an Microsoft Active Directory on a single server. So business requirements, RTO 1 day, RTO 3 days, and it would take you about 53 hours to download all the files. So in this case, if you have a device level disaster, a file-based system is not going to work because you have the Active Directory, so you have to be able to restore the full system. So you have to use a system backup mechanism or above. If you have a site regional disaster, again, the local is not going to work. So we're leaving you with those remaining choices. There's really no cloud provider here, so those won't really apply. So a good solution here, probably something like Beam Essentials with Cloud Connect or a Datto Alto. All right, third scenario, an architectural firm of 30 employees, customer files on 3 local servers, files on the office file share are critical to business operations, can't be more than 2 days old, they could be down for 1 day without unacceptable disruption, 50 meg up and down internet, and about 3 terabytes of data. And again, Active Directory, security handled by Active Directory on a single server. So RPO 2 days, RPO 1 day, time to download all the files 140 hours. So again, a device level backup. Again, you have to restore entire servers. So file only backups are not going to work. System level may or may not work for local because if the device has to, again, you have to have the system back up and go back 1 day. So if you can't get a server to replace it in a day, or you can't restore all the data in a day, it's not going to meet your business objective. So you may have to rely upon the image or redundant system to meet your business objective. And again, in a site or regional, although local only is going to fail, so you're left with either cloud or both in those cases. Again, no real cloud provider here, so that level is not applicable. So the appropriate solution for this firm, a Datto Cirrus, or possibly Beam with Cloud Connect. All right, let's look at a manufacturing headquarters with 100 employees. All files and line of business applications on local server farm. Files and applications are critical to business operations. Files on critical servers must not be older than 2 hours. They cannot ship product without the infrastructure, internet connection of 100, and 5 terabytes of data. And again, Active Directory in the server farm. So Based upon that, we have about RPO of about 4 hours and RPO of about RPO of 2 hours and RPO of 4 hours. So they can be down half a day and still put in all the orders. And the time to download all your files from a cloud-only solution is about 117 hours. All right, so again, since it's file only, since you have systems, you can't use a file only solution. Pretty much all the system level backups are not going to be able to restore that data within the 4 hours needed. So that means you either with image or redundant. Site and regional takes out the cloud, the local only, leaving you with those other options. Again, no real cloud provider here. So the best solution for this one is probably a data series. On-site appliance, local virtualization can be up in a matter of minutes. If it's a site or a regional disaster, you can fire them up in the cloud and continue operating. All right, last scenario. A large law firm with 3,000 employees and 5 regional offices. All files and line of business applications on 180 servers. Files and applications are critical to business operations. Files can't be more than a day old. Staff can't bill without server infrastructure. So if you want to keep the billing up, you've got to keep the infrastructure up. Internet connection is 100 at all sites and full gig at the solo and approximately 100 terabytes of data. All right, so here we have an RPO of 1 day and an RPO of 1/2 hour. You get back up so you can build. Time to download all the files would be about 10 days, so that's obviously not going to work for either of these requirements. So again, local file-based backups aren't going to work. System-based backups aren't going to work, and the cloud-only image isn't going to work either because it takes too long to download the system. Download the images to get your system back up and running. For a site regional, all the local is out. So kind of by default here, you're kind of left with either a redundant data center. That data center could be an Amazon cloud with a redundant, geographically redundant, but that would keep you up and running. All right, well, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, well, thanks everyone. As I said, we do these on a quarterly basis, so we'll be letting you know when our next one is. And of course, here at SpotLink, we work on data protection as well as security. If you have any questions or have any needs, feel free to call us. We're happy to help you wherever we can. Thanks. Have a good day.